really true thing about restaurants?
System, baby.
You are never alone.
Looks elegant, right?
No, just don't do it. Just stand right here.
Yeah.
Put your hands down
Yeah.
and walk like a G. There you go, Neil.
Alright, so allow me to talk about season 4 of The Bear, right? Which came out last Thursday on FX, the time of me recording this, right? So, we talked about the last season. I believe we both spoke about it together. Liked it, but didn't love the season as much as we wanted to. And even though, so forgive me, folks, I didn't bother to recap what I said about season 3. I just recapped season 3, right? But yeah, for me, I just felt like the show was just sort of spit up. It was just kind of on neutral. It was just sort of spinning its wheels, just kind of giving us the same stuff that we got in the last season, the same sort of almost sort of navel gazing kind of sort of look at life and failure and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And then the show had to go out and say to be continued. So I'm just watching 10 episodes and then you tell me, oh, next year you're gonna see the second half and there's gonna be 10 more episodes. You know what I mean? So it's like that, right? And yeah, that's exactly what we get here in this season here, right? So to briefly state what the premise is about, right? So yes, we return to the Bear restaurant, formerly known as the Beef, or I should say, it's still the whole restaurant / burger joint, right? Because in the day there's a burger joint, right? But on the evening time, around 5 or 6ish, whatever it is, there's a restaurant, right? And the main character, Carmen Bezzato, or Kami as you call him, played by Jeremy Allen White, he is pretty much trying to run this restaurant, right? Because this has been his idea for years now. He's been learning a thing or two about, being a chef in a restaurant, right? But in particular, just learning to deal with the pressure, right? And the perfectionism when it comes to, just making these really just really exquisite meals, right? And whatnot, right? There's a perfectionism involved in it, right? And in his case, it's all about trying to be the best chef he could possibly can, right? But but as the show has set up from early on, he has to deal with a very, very, very dysfunctional family, right? And there's a lot of bad blood and just memories that he's been trying to bottle in, right? One involving his brother, who is played by Shane Main, John Berntal, right? Who actually dies, right? I don't think at this point they ever really say how he died, but I'm assuming that. Sorry?
No, he commits suicide.
Right.
He commits suicide. Yeah, that's well established.
Okay. I forgot that. 'Cause, yeah, even when I was recapping season 3, I was trying to remember, did he commit suicide? But they were alluded to that a lot, right? So yeah, he's dealing with that. He also had to deal with I don't want to say a coach, but basically a chef who was training him, who was played by Joel McHale of all people, and
right. Constantly necking him.
Yeah, constantly negging him, Joe, to the point that man just he become a wreck, he become an emotional wreck after that, right? So the last season ends where he actually reads online a review of the Bear, right, of the restaurant, right, which is the first review, and it was a bad review. The restaurant itself got a low score, and it wasn't really so much about the food, but it was just about the really bad energy that was going on, behind the scenes, right? And that trips him off, and the other people who work there says here's what, right, we need to hit a certain cap, a certain quota, and if we don't hit that, if we don't meet that, sorry, then we might have to shut things down, right? Because you gotta think about money, you gotta think about paying the chefs and all these kind of things, right? So yes, our main characters are just put under the ringer, right? Whether it's Richie, who is played by Eben Moss Backrack, you have Sydney, who's played by McGill A.O. Edeberry, you have Marcus, who's played by my boy Lionel Boyce, you have Tina, who's played by Liza Colon Zayas, and so on and so forth, right? And they, it's crunch time that they had to get things rolling, right? But at the same time, there's these subplots involving, or I should just say, as I jump into the review here, right? This season feels is more about reconciliation. It's more about tying up loose ends, patching things up, right? Emotionally, relationship wise, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's subplots involving the mom, right? Carmen's mom, who is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, right? Because yes, in season 2, if you remember, there was that really famous that great episode, even though it is pitch black, right? Yeah, that Christmas dinner episode, right? And how she flips out in the end as well, right? And then of course, Carmen's brother, who's played by John Bernthal was there, and how he flips out too, right? So yes, Carmen and his mom reconcile there too. Sydney has, Sydney still deal with her dad, who's played by Robert Townsend, his, sickly dad, and I will not lie, especially what happens to, Sydney's dad. Yeah, that really hit home, boy, because I can relate to all of that. I can relate to, trying to maintain a job and be positive about what you're doing and what you
Right.
feel like you're benefiting to the world, but you have to take care of your folks. You have to take care of the one parent that is still alive, right? And it's hard, right? Marcus, who his mom passed away in the last season, right? And he's trying to cope with that, and he's trying to move forward as well, right? Richie, right, who is they had a subplot that was set up where his ex, who is played by Gillian Jacobs, right? If you remember her from Community, yeah, pretty much marrying Josh Hartnett of all people, right?
Right.
His drama with that too. Is Carmen dealing with his ex, and it's a lot of stuff that goes on, right? But what I will say compared to last season, that this season is surprisingly optimistic though and hopeful. I was actually shocked though. I was like, because no lie, the last season was dreary though. Like, yes, they have your moments of laughter and humor, right? And little light moments and whatnot, right? But it was a dreary season. It was characters just being beaten down to the ground, emotionally and mentally struggling to pick themselves back up and just being beaten down again by life and all that kind of stuff. And you felt that, right? And I'll talk about that in terms of how I imagine people will respond to this season here, right? But yeah, this one was like brighter though in comparison. It was hopeful. Characters are happier though, but yes, there is still the struggle, right? That always was the heart of the show. It's always about the struggle. It was about having to deal with perfectionism. It was always having to deal with failure and having to pick yourself up, right? But the show just has this great way of realistically saying, yeah, that shit not easy, like, it's not easy. You don't just pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move forward. No. You had to live with that pain. You had to find a way every single day to power through that. And I felt like this is what this show nails perfectly, right? So that being said, because I haven't really seen much reviews of it, right? I saw a few people actually praising it. Believe it or not, Richard Roper, who has now started working on RogerEbert.com, right?
I've only seen a couple of I've only seen a couple of influencers talk about it.
Right.
It was interesting enough that they talk about it because somebody not in that space, but the person makes sense talking about it because emotionally they're in that space, and it's one of these people who don't want to compromise themselves with some shitty what do you call it? Them shitty ad thing now, so they don't want to sell themselves out. But like a show like this, given the emotional nature of the show, they avoid it now. It's that.
Right. Okay. But yeah, what I was saying is that Richard Roper, who's like a longtime friend of the late great Roger Ebert, yeah, he started writing on the Roger Ebert website, which is really cool, right? But yeah, he gave a review of it. I didn't read it, but he appears to really enjoy it, right? But I saw a few early on when the show dropped, right? Again, we live in a world where a show will drop at midnight, and then like 12 p.m. somebody will say, "Oh, this is the full review, or this is the review of the full season." We managed to watch all 10 episodes, and here's a lengthy review, right? Exactly, yeah, right. But they were saying that it's more of the same, right? More of the same dreariness. And I would admit, the nature of the show, the nature of the show, what it is, yes, it is more of the same. You have to go in knowing that this is the type of show that it is, right? It is a lot of characters. It's that slice of life style of drama, right? Where it's characters just having to deal with the 9 to 5, just having to deal with working hard and feeling like, they're not getting any rewards and all that kind of stuff, having to juggle, responsibilities and whatnot, right? The perfectionism that takes place when you are in this restaurant, right? The pressures that you have to face. You get that here. Yeah, it is about, characters having to wake up and, just face the fact that, yes, this is the job that this is the profession that they've chosen. This is what they've dedicated their life to. It's hard. It's rough. It's ruthless at times, but they do what they do because they are great at it. That's what it is, right? So yes, this is the show. If you don't like that sort of dramedy kind of, because that's the best way I could call this show. It's a dramedy. They call it a comedy drama. No, it's a dramedy. It's more drama, and you will get laughs ever so often, but not so much. But it's not really about laughter. It's laughing along with the characters. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? But yeah, if you don't like dramedies and you just don't like characters being worn down emotionally and having to pick themselves back up, yeah, this is not for you. So yes, it is.
Yeah,
more
no,
of the same.
it kind of reflecting the kind of real world conceit. Because I know Squid Game have a similar problem going on with it right now. I watch the first couple episodes and like, oh shit, they go in this direction with it. Blah blah blah. So I don't know. Like I could I understand why it's the way it is. Because it's not really meant to be hopeful or whatever it is. But like that would be a kind of contrivance of the narrative. So it's fine. That makes some sense to me at least.
And speaking of Squid Game, because yeah, Squid Game came out a day afterwards, right? And at the moment, I have not yet watched the third and final season of Squid Game. I do plan to, because it is the third and final season, right? But yeah, more people talk about Squid Game than the bear, right? And I'm now wondering if it's just that just people probably just find the show to just be not generic, but more like, yeah, that's the show, that's the style, but I don't know, it just don't rope me in anymore. I'm not interested in it anymore. Why Carmen always have baggage? Why these characters have so much baggage all the time? I don't care anymore. It upsetting me and making me feel anxious. I don't want to watch anxious. I don't want to watch shows that get me anxious. Although you go quicker look towards Squid Game, which I hear have a lot of intense stuff in it. You know what I mean? But whatever. But right. I knew what to expect going into Squid. Right? I knew what to expect going into the bear. Right? And what I would say, right, I would recommend that you watch season 3 before you jump into season 4. Not just because it's a two-parter technically, right? But there's these very nice, clever callbacks to that last season. I'm not going to say where, but they actually work, right? Whether it's a piece of dialogue or a song, right? And yes, to touch on music, yes, there's a lot of like needle drops, but they're more on the indie rock, soft rock kind of aesthetic, you know what I mean? And they work, right? They add a lot to the scene and what's going on, right? The acting, I think that this is the show's biggest strength, though. The acting is just superb across the board. I just love how naturalistic the characters perform, though, right? It just feels so real, Dread, almost like very cinema verite in a sense, the way how the characters talk, right? Especially when they're put under stress and they like to try to talk over each other. And yes, this is a show that drops a lot of F-bombs, but it's natural. It doesn't feel edgy or edgelordy. It feels like, yeah, like fuck you, shut up, right? It feels like that, and it absolutely works, right? Direction is strong in this as well. There's some great visuals in this as well. Like what are we doing here, right? And then yeah, just where the characters are taken, I really dug as well. They're not like tortured throughout this whole season. They have their downs, but there's a lot of ups that they go through as well, right? But they have to kind of deal with their own personal demons and sort of learn to move forward, right? Not everybody succeeds, but there's always just that one step forward, right? Like that's that one step forward matters. It's just a matter of how much steps they could take moving forward, and that's really what it is, right? But yeah, I really found myself enjoying the season. I think that it is a gradual step up from the last one, just in terms of the tone. It's relatively upbeat compared to the last one, right? But yes, it is still that dreary, life is hard kind of stuff, right? But that is what the bear is about. That's kind of what the bear is about, right? And lastly, as a wrap up here, right? So I remember with my season 3 review, I was wondering if this 4th season will be the last one. It isn't, but okay. I'm now wondering if a part of me feels like this 5th season should be the last. And I will say, without spoiling much, there's a reveal.
I'll say it before and I'll say it again. Nothing needs to be more than 5 seasons.
Right. Exactly. Right. Because there's a reveal, or I should say a decision that is about to take place that pretty much spells, the show needs to done. You know what I mean? It's like that, right? And if they could actually end things off on a strong note, I could actually put The Bear as one of my favorite TV shows to come out of FX, right? Because I mean, it was. Yeah, because when it comes like FX, for example, Snowfall, which I actually watched recently, I love,
Pretty good.
love, love, love,
Yeah.
love. Yeah, Snowfall is goated in my opinion. One of the best crime drama series ever made, right? Atlanta, I absolutely love that show.
Right.
Both
Right.
shows need to come out on Blu-ray Dread. I don't understand FX Dread. Why they not putting out this shit on Blu-ray Dread? Like, I think the only show they have, like, they'll put out like the American Horror Story stuff. They'll put out Sons of Anarchy, which I love. Not as much as Snowfall, but I love Sons of Anarchy, right? But yeah, they need to put out this shit, Dread. And that's last thing I'll say, right? But yeah, this 5th season need to be the last. So, and this is just me guesstimating here, right? I am guesstimating when this series comes out on Blu-ray. I am guesstimating that it will include a cookbook.
Right.
All them real dread dishes that you saw throughout this entire series, they're gonna be in that cookbook. They need to have a cookbook in that box set. Trust me on that. Yeah, because there's some delightful, delicious looking shit in there, and they don't even tell you how to make it. They just say, oh, you do this and you do this and this and this, boom. But I want to learn how to make them texture. You know what I mean? I want to learn. So yes, FX bought a cookbook though. Put it in the box set. Trust me. People will buy that shit. I will buy that shit, right? But yeah, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a decent to strong 4 to 5, man. I really enjoyed the season here, right? It's not one of the best seasons I've seen all year, but for sure I could see this definitely popping up in my honorable mention, right? But yeah, again, the nature seeing what the nature of the show is, it's not going to be for everyone. I know a lot of people will kind of look at it and say, this could affect, this could give me panic attacks and anxiety and shit. I don't want to see that. But no, it's really about the emotional core of the characters and just how real they feel. And that's last thing what I love about the show the most is how you generally care for these characters. They are very, very likable. You really do care for them, and you want them to survive. You want them to grow. You want them to be better and get better. You know what I mean? But they have to go through the hardships, whatever it is, right? And you want them to. You're rooted for them to make it. You're really rooted for them to make it. So when they do make it, you feel happy for them. And I feel like this season, there's a lot of W's in the season compared to the L's that a lot of characters took in the last season, right? But the Bear delivers yet another solid season. But I do hope personally that this upcoming season is the last one, and then we can just sort of move on to other shit like Shogun or whatever it is, right? But this season was real good. I would say definitely check it out. If you have any last words on just the Bear in general, and if it really should wrap up.
I watched the season. I watched the season yet, but sorry, FX was cooked, so it's like no pun intended, right? So I expected the season to be good because I heard from somebody again. She said she liked it a lot, and she also defended season 2, which a lot of people didn't like. But she liked it in terms of like the actual emotional conceits of it, not shallow like before where they're telling the surface stuff. It's more like a surprisingly deeper, more interesting material that people don't want to talk about. And I was like, all right, well, I expect it to be good. And your boy gonna be in Fantastic Four later this year. So it's like, all right, vibes.
I think it's purposeful that they put the show out now, so you have a month to prepare for him to play the thing,
Exactly, like good timing. So it's like good timing for her.
Yeah, exactly.